welcome to LYLAS. If you grew up in the 90s, then you probably know what LYLAS stands for. And by default, this podcast is for you.
Welcome to episode 46, season 3. We're continuing to push on. I want to thank everybody for, again, giving us that kind of like 2-week break to really focus on our content, to really dive in pretty hardcore to some of the topics that we're interested in exploring and discussing with all of you. So thank you for your patience and your continued listening. And, we're going to always ask you to like, share, subscribe on everything so that way we can keep our message going, right?
Yeah, that's what's so great about our podcast is we don't make you listen to any kind of advertisements halfway through. So as a thank you, then just give us a like and a follow or a share, any of those things. Leave us a rating on one of the platforms. That's also super helpful. So yeah, I'm trying out a new mic today, so I'll be curious to hear if it sounds different, better, worse.
All right,
we'll have to give sounds worse. Can you tell a difference?
Not a whole lot, maybe a tiny bit. We'll have to have our brilliant Seth be our God bless engineer guru kind of guy to give us some feedback on it. Love his heart.
We don't talk enough about Seth on this podcast, and he's a real hero for, as we used to tell him when we first started, just make us sound cool.
That's true. And God bless him. He's been so patient and kind the entire time. And seriously, if you're in the Austin area, you really need to check him out because he is hot on the music scene there. Check out his Instagram. He releases new material. He's got the best videos in the world. He's a multi-instrument performer, songwriter, videographer, a jack of all trades. And I think he just turned 20. God love him.
Yeah, God love that he listens to us week in and week out and puts it together into a podcast. So thank you, Seth. We wanted to shout you out.
Yes, thank you. Be sure to follow him. I'll put his link. His link is up actually on our webpage. If you go to our team and scroll down, you'll see all of his stuff. So if you're liking the LYLAS podcast, be sure to go over there and like Seth Seldron music too.
That's right. Okay, today's topic, we're going to dive right in, another listener recommended topic. And I like this one because this is something that I just feel like, I don't know, I assume moms have been carrying the mental load since the beginning of time, but nobody really ever talked about how much of a weight that it was going to be in our adult lives. And so sometimes when I used to bring it up in the beginning, like I felt like it hit pretty hard after that second kid, but first kid even. But when I would bring it up, my husband, God love him, would almost like roll his eyes like, oh, the mental load again. Are we going to talk about this again? And the bottom line is until you make them aware of how much effort you're putting into every part of every day for not only yourself, but for the children that you brought into this world or care for, it just, they have no clue. They have no clue. And I love men. This is not a men bashing show. We love our male listeners. However, the mental load is real. And so we're going to talk about today how you can share that mental load with your partner, whether it's male or female, how you can share that mental load because it is a load and nobody should do it alone.
It really is an invisible weight that causes so much personal exhaustion, and then it does lead to friction, I think, within the course of the relationship, just due to what appears to be a lack of understanding or at times receptivity to the difficulties and challenges within things, or how we perceive our role to be as well as theirs. And so really kind of like validating, I think, those feelings that we have within those moments and carrying out tasks, and then coming up with good ways to kind of communicate that with our partners and to really share the load, so to say, right?
Share the load. It is. But communication is key. No shock there. And it part of it is just spelling that out for your partner, what you're taking care of inside of your head day in and day out, the things that they aren't even thinking about. And it might be a good idea for your partner to do the same thing because there are definitely things that my husband takes care of that I don't think about and don't want to think about. And like changing the whatever those filters are or whatever in the house. Like he does that. I don't think about it. He buys them. I don't really think about that either. So I mean there are things, and so maybe like having both partners make a list of the things that they do,
Hmm.
because sometimes we can forget that our partners carry also their own invisible load. I would argue till I'm blue in the face that women carry more, but it's not a competition at the end of the day. It's more of that recognition piece of like, hey, this is a lot, and this is why I lose my shit every other day because no one understands all of the things that I'm trying, all the balls I'm trying to keep in the air.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do think that that's definitely true. And I think that in sharing that and communicating that with our partners, sometimes it does become emotional. It opens us up to a different layer of vulnerability
Mm-hmm.
within ourselves. And um, it's hard, I think, to express that and then to receive that information at times,
Mm-hmm.
because the partner at that point can feel like then they're not doing their own, and they may be trying everything they can or don't know what else to do, or
Yep.
um I think sometimes, even whenever I think about whenever I've shared that I need some extra help or some support with this, or that this is a struggle, I think my husband in particular in the past has really gone straight into like problem solving mode.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that that's even what I've needed in those moments. I think I've just needed to I need to be able to vent this to you. I need to be able to express this to you because it's creating a underlying like yuck within my life that I'm afraid is going to lead to an explosion. So you may not like what I'm about ready to say in here just because maybe the topic or the subject matter, but I just got to get this out because it's creating bubbles, you know?
Yeah, or that you just need that acknowledgement for all of the things that you're sort of, like I said, like all the balls in the air. But let's define what we mean by mental load, because I'm curious to know if we have the same definition. When
Mhm.
I think of mental load, I think of all the like little things that I feel like sometimes my husband is completely oblivious, like taking our kids to the dentist, going, pediatrician checks, dog food, having the dog, seen by the vet each year for its annual checkup. I'm talking like the heartworm medicine, making sure, little things, lunches, making sure the kids have lunches that they will eat and that their homework is done. The routine day in, day out. I know he thinks of some of these things and he thinks about them sporadically. I just don't think that it's like something that's eating at his brain. He's not making a plan for when these things are going to get accomplished. A perfect example of that, he's been out of town a lot lately, and he came back he came back on Thursday, and I had dinner with a girlfriend, and guess for the first time ever, we're now in January, our daughter didn't do her homework for the first time. Guess what night that was? It's just like oblivious to those little things because he A doesn't do it day in and day out, and B, like I said, I just don't think that they think about these things. I don't know. What's your definition? Give me your
Oh,
definition of the mental load.
same. I think that every female will be like, yes, like everyone that's driving in their car listening to this, and then also talking to us through the radio or however you're listening, like add this to it too. Um,
Yes, I'm sure. I mean, there's a million things,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. For me, I think it's like, and this will sound terrible, but like where things are located within our house,
Mm-hmm.
because my husband and my son really, and now our daughter also thinks this is funny. I've gotten into that tubbing
Mm-hmm.
where everything I have in the house is now in these like clear tubs. Um, but I have like stockpiles, not like ridiculous COVID stockpiles of stuff, but like here's where you can find the toilet paper. Here's where the sweeper
Okay.
pads are, like all of this kind of thing. And I don't I think that he has an idea of where these things are, but where exactly to find them, even though it's been shown and talked about or whatever, is just not practiced enough for it to become a known piece of information that then stays within his stored capacity. And so that I think becomes a piece, but remembering to stock those things, remembering to
Hmm.
have things on hand just
Oh,
in
yeah.
case X, Y, and Z. So it's not even sometimes the act, it's just the fact that we have this mental inventory of things that we
Hmm.
always need to have or have on hand. And then just in case. And yeah, you can run out to a store or to Walmart or whatever if you need an emergency. But if one of the kids is sick and puking and the other one is asleep, you don't necessarily want to wake the other one up, pull them out of bed to take them down the road in
Right.
order, you know what I mean, in order to kind of deal with that situation in the moment. And I think that's a piece of it. And then I would also say, I think it's just for me, um, and I am a definitely a weird beast. Um, and again, maybe this is still something I haven't grown out of. Or it's just a part of my personality and makeup, and I just need to accept it, which is what I'm leaning towards. Is that I do need that kind of like positive recognition for things because I work
Yeah.
so hard to get things done, and I just want you to see that they're done or that a change has happened. And whenever I don't feel like there's an acknowledgement of that occurring, then that adds an additional, it adds mental load to it because I feel like what more do I need to do in order to get
Right.
like a good,
Well,
you know what I mean, a thank you or a good
I
job.
I hear that this is your love language, is what I'm hearing you say, and that you
Yeah.
need those words of affirmation from him saying, Sarah, great job making sure that we always have toilet paper in that one bin that you have designated and that's across the way. Because if I know you, your organization system only makes sense to you. Like, there's no way a rando could come in and find which bin you've selected for your toilet paper.
Uh, Maybe not. You have to come over
Okay, I'm going to try it next time.
I'll
See
do
if
a video.
it's
Maybe
where
I'll,
I would think it is.
right. We'll do a video of where Sarah's things are in the bin and you can check it out on our YouTube and TikTok and we'll see if it makes sense. But
Well, and I guess that just makes a good point, right? So your husband, like I am learning to do this ever since we started. We use like notes, the notes app, a shared,
mhm,
family notes app or whatever. And so once I started putting things in lists, like whether it's like the Target list or the Costco list or the grocery list, whatever it is, and now it's like whoever goes to the respective store is responsible for getting those things. But like once he became a little bit more aware, I think a Christmas list, I probably need to share the Christmas list so he can see all of the gifts that I organize. I mean, I think he does get it once he's there and watching people open things that he has no idea what they are.
mhm.
He kind of wraps his brain around, oh shit, somebody purchased all this and got it to the right place and wrapped it and kept everything a surprise. Wow. But nonetheless, um, I had to let go. If I'm going to give some of these things up, like I have to let go of some of that control piece of it because,
Mhm.
like I said, I think a big part of it is that we want control. Like I particularly like to control the clothing that my children wear to school to some extent, right?
Mm.
And so, like, if can he get them to school fine and dandy on time? Absolutely, and that's part of his load most mornings. But is he always going to have them dressed the way that I want them dressed and her hair done? Like I had to let go of some of those things if you truly want help with the mental load. It can't be that your expectation, or at least this is my opinion, can't be that your expectation is that they're going to do things your way just because they're taking that task on the list.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And in fact, I would say that that is counterproductive if you want it done your way.
Right.
And they're every single just like my little tubbing things, like that's my way of doing it. I'm not going to expect him to do anything, but if,
Hub.
right, to tub. To tub. Now we've made this a verb. Um, but, but I do, it's so silly, but I do think that it is a part of that good shared kind of communication and understanding and, letting, like you said, kind of letting go of the control of it and just allowing things to kind of be their own way with the task still getting done. As long as, it's been identified as an important task that needs to be done, that it's
Yeah.
still happening, like a kid's homework or whatever the process is. I don't care which way you go to cross the line, but let's cross the line.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you have to be willing to let them fail at some things too, just like your kids. You can't
Mm-hmm.
control everything. And if they fail at certain things, I can't remember what it was, but I was out of town one time recently and something happened. And I think he took him to a birthday party or something. And he was like, ooh, ill prepared for that. Didn't even think about like the gift or something like that. I'm like, yeah, like, that's part of the mental load. You got a birthday party this weekend. You got to have a gift for that birthday party. You got to have an age appropriate gift for that child. So, you can't, but he didn't even think about getting a gift, period, much less that it be age appropriate and for that kid or what, something they might actually like. So yeah, just like, and so was I slightly embarrassed that my kids went to a birthday party and showed up without a gift? 100%. But like, I had to let that shit go because that's on him. Next
Mm-hmm.
time, I bet they'll show up with a gift.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally fair. Totally fair. And so, coming back to this, I do think that it's important for us to kind of have a collective communication with our partner about what load we are each carrying. If it's
Mm-hmm.
work based, if it's kid based, chore based, relationship based, financially based, I don't know
Yeah.
how how you're going to deal with X, Y, and Z, or even if you again have bubbles about a situation, being able to kind of talk with each other about what is happening or kind of going on really does become
Mm-hmm.
important. And for me, using writing is a very helpful tool too. And that's why I got those damn to-do lists everywhere, which are so
Yeah.
helpful. My vision boards, I mean, all of that stuff helps me. But I've also
Yeah.
found that for me as a person, it is so much easier for me to express my thoughts and feelings on something if I
Mm-hmm.
have it written down. It's not that I'm
Sure.
not articulate enough to be able to say it in that moment, but I think that at least at this stage in the game, I just get too caught up in the emotion that sometimes comes with the
Mm-hmm.
verbalization that the
Yeah.
message gets lost.
Yeah. I agree. It
And so,
definitely helps. So using technology, whether it's a notes app or whatever way that you can communicate, it can be messages, whatever. I think
mhm,
that's a good way just to make sure and just start small, but make your plan. Like, okay, you're going to take over grocery shopping, which God forbid I would never allow that to happen. However,
mm,
some people might be okay with that. Like
mhm,
I can't even do like the Instacart thing where like anyone chooses my like that's never gonna happen. I'm gonna grocery shop until I physically can't do it anymore. Like I don't want people picking my shit. Like I just don't. It's just not who I am. But some people can do that. And the more you can delegate or not delegate, that's not the right word, but get those tasks off your plate.
mhm,
Meal planning, if it's something that you don't like to, I like to meal plan, I just don't like to cook it. I'm getting
mhm,
better at that, but historically, I have not liked to cook it. So like I'll meal plan all day, I'll grocery shop all day, and you know what? You're responsible to cook 5 out of 7 meals a week or whatever it is,
mhm.
like take that off your plate. I don't have to worry. Like when people walk in, what are you having for dinner at 5 o'clock? I don't know. That's not my job. That's
Yeah.
his job. That's his role. So have a plan, and that way it's clear, and there's no like, ooh, is it, should I be
Mhm,
doing? Because that's where you start to breed that resentment of like, I do it like I did it last night. That's when you start noticing that you're saying things in a competition way. I did, and that's something I try really hard to catch myself on. Like when you get into, well, I did it last time. Well, I did, it's your turn. No, we're not taking turns. We're not 5-year-olds. We're partners that chose to do this together. So like,
mhm.
suck it up. Either do it yourself or say, hey, I need help with this. Can you do this for me?
Yeah,
It's not a one-up situation. I think that's so dangerous in relationships.
it is. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think with us in our situation, I mean, God, Jeff went grocery shopping this morning. Like
Did
oh yeah, yeah, and he does a fabulous job of doing that kind of a thing. And he's really good at like helping out with um, doing like house chores and is pretty involved, but we have a different definition of things. And I think that that's been helpful in our kind of communication. Like, I consider our house to be really clean because I clean the floors. I dust, you know
Right.
what I mean? I
Your
wipe the
house is very
counters.
clean. I will say it is always clean when I come over.
It's always, that's, thank you. I always feel like it's
It
clean
is
too.
always
Um,
clean.
I know, Joe and Lynn, give them a shout out real quick. We were out of town, wanted to come to our house, and we were like, yeah, absolutely. And I was sitting there like, they were like, oh my gosh, it's so clean. And I was like, well, that's great. That's good. You know, again, that affirmation. But
'Cause we
he,
remember you as a teenager. That's it. It's
oh,
we're all shocked as hell that it's as clean as it is.
that's exactly right. As you still should. Every day you should be shocked that it's turned out
Trust me, I am. There's a lot of things that shock the hell out of me.
well.
That's one of them.
That's one, yeah. But for him, he recognizes being clean, but sometimes he uses a different word because he sees things as being clutter. So I have a lot of like little decorations and things like that around, and that to him, he's not paying as much attention to the fact that it's been a monsoon here for days and there's no dog prints on our floor because I've been cleaning them up. But if I have, you know, an extra little dish out on the counter, then that's what gets looked at. And that's where, again, we work on our communication to recognize the differences because that would
Right.
cause bubbles within me. I'm like, this dog goes outside 3 times a day and you never know it because I clean up all for, you know what I mean? But
Oh
I
yeah.
think that's where the difference is, and that's where a mental load I think can come into play. And then with me, it's about like, I think it just comes down to like communication. Whenever somebody gets on and off of work, or those transitions happen,
Mm-hmm.
or with tasks related to the kids, and those I think tend to be the most areas of I guess friction is the word I'm going to keep using, that tend to happen where mental load on both sides is just a lot.
Yeah. And I think too, I noticed it a lot more just because my husband has been traveling more recently. It's like if someone's been out of town for an extended period of time and they come back, like it is really hard when you've been carrying the mental load exclusively for an extended period of time to not feel some kind of way when that person comes back and doesn't jump like right in all hands on deck because you're like, dude, I've been doing this all by myself. So a lot of like conversations I have with myself lately, let me sound as crazy as I am here. Um, but a lot of conversations of like things like you just explained, like you having an extra dish out annoys him, right? That annoys him. It doesn't annoy you. There are things I could tell you, same thing. Like my husband tends to like wash dishes in the sink, but will put Yeti cups up on the perimeter of the sink, like dirty Yeti cups. And I'm like, they're dirty. Put them in the sink. Then you just wash them with all the other dishes that you're going to wash or take care of it. But for whatever reason, he has this aversion to putting a Yeti in a sink and it drives me bonkers. But to that point, it drives me bonkers. Like
Right.
he don't give a shit. He doesn't care. It doesn't bother him. And so like it's just more of those communications, like picking the right time to have these kinds of conversations. You don't want to do it when you're already pissed off because you've done 87 loads of laundry and they've been out of town for 7 days and you're over it.
Mm-hmm.
But I found a good time like that Sunday morning coffee when like things are a little bit slower and you can just sort of like have necessary conversations tends to be a little bit easier for us, but choosing the right time to talk about it is crucial. And then just remembering that just because it annoys the shit out of you doesn't mean that they care or that it annoys them. And so I try to remind myself again, not perfect over here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it is fluid. Some days I do better than others,
Mm-hmm.
but it's that communication piece, not only to your partner, but to yourself of like, it's not that big a deal. At the end of the day, in the grand scheme of life, him leaving Yetis along the perimeter of the sink, not that big a deal.
Yeah.
And you got to let some shit go sometimes, and
Mm-hmm.
just say, it's, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's annoying. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's my advice for the day. It is what it is, people. Listen.
I remember I was in practice. I used to say that to my patients all the time, and they were like, "Whenever you first started saying this, we absolutely hated it, and now it's always say because we realize it's fact." And I was like, "Listen, I get it. Yes."
It's a good way to detach from things when it's like, it is what it is. Like, you're not going to
Hmm.
change it. You're not going to
Hmm.
change that person. He's forever going to put Yeti cups around the perimeter of the sink unless I buy some farmhouse sink, 10 feet wide. Maybe that needs sticking in there.
There's that. Um, and that actually brings up something kind of interesting that's been a discussion within kind of our home, in a not so much in the clinical term of it, but it's about growing distress tolerance.
I love this. Yeah.
And so, you know, there's we're not going to go into the clinical definition of that. If you're interested in DBT, go talk to somebody. You know what I mean? Get a book,
Hmm.
whatever. But there's different definitions of what distress tolerance is. And for some, it can be that you do a lot of like, you put yourself in a situation that is uncomfortable, knowing that the more that you expose yourself to it, the
Hmm.
less discomfort you will experience over
Over
time.
time.
Yeah, and you just kind of need to get over it. And so within the course of our relationship, I do have a lot of distress tolerance. Like there's things that absolutely drive me nuts, but you would not know about it because I'm just like, oh, fuck it. You know what I mean? I'm not here
Right.
interested in like jumping on this kind of a train. And then there are other things that serve as very hot button issues for me. So if you step on one of those hot
Right.
buttons, then again, that's where I still need work, is to just be like, we're going there, and that's where I pick up the gloves and it's time. But we were, he had, and giving him so much credit for this quirk where he doesn't like it whenever you say, and he did this on his podcast, so it's not like it's old news or private. He doesn't like it whenever people say bless you or acknowledge that he sneezed. Like it gets on his nerves so fucking
Oh,
bad.
I'm gonna do that every single time I hear him sneeze from now. I'm so glad you told me this.
Yeah, it's he just really, really didn't like it. But he is I mean, we're from the South, for Christ's sakes. And
Kind of.
in a way, yeah, you definitely live there. I don't. I'm in this misfit state that really doesn't, it's its own bubble. God bless it.
It is special.
It's a special bubble. But he never liked it. But he's the only person in the world that has ever said that. And so I don't care if I'm in Germany, I'm going to say Gesundheit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whatever. But so he's said this, and then so I've tried to not say anything, but then I'll
Hmm.
notice I'll say it and then I'll go, I'm sorry right after it. And finally, it turns out that the I'm sorry's was more, got on
More
his nerves
annoying.
more than, so I found a way to wear him down, maybe. But, it was more annoying to him to hear me
Uh,
say I'm sorry afterwards than for me just to say it. And so the other day, he sneezed and then I said it. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was like, this is really hard. You're the only person in the entire world that feels this way about it. And I'm working
right.
on it, which is why I'm apologizing for it, but it's still not
Right.
catching, dude. And he was like, I'm over it. He was like, I've got to let this down. He was like, this isn't bothering anybody else in the world except me. And this is
Right.
just something that I need to just be like, bro, please, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that for
Oh,
all of
listen
us,
to Jeff. He's
I
come so
know.
far.
He's done some. I know, right? It just took me sitting there saying I'm sorry after it made me, but I think it for us as people, it just kind of comes to that point with it. Like, is this really worth it?
Yeah. Is it
I
really, or is it a big deal? It's not a big deal.
no, no, and that's where I'm at. This is where kind of kicking back to our hell yes and hell no's episode.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many things that I'm just like, you know what? No. Like
Mm-mm.
I'm just not doing this. I'm not waging these battles. I'm not waging these fights. If this is a problem for you, then guess what? It's your problem. It's not mine, because this ship is
Well,
sailing just fine.
and I think too, if it's a relationship worth fighting for, then you have got to let go of some stuff.
Yeah.
And because, once you've been, I mean, Jeff and I have been together 17 years, which is
Mm.
crazy, but like there's so many things that we annoy each other about, that could eat you alive. Or you could say, that's annoying, but here's all of the
Right.
amazing things that you do that, and you got to give people credit for that, whether it's somebody that responds to affirmations or not.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody likes to be acknowledged when they're doing something, when they're trying their best, or when it's something that they excel at naturally. It feels good to have to be recognized.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that way too. I think that's part of like carrying that mental load is I get annoyed because um like Jeff also needs words of affirmation. You guys are similar in some ways, but he also is very much a words of affirmations type of
Mm-hmm.
person. And so like, he'll get butthurt if I don't, fall over myself when he mops the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And to the same point, like, I could do something like I gave the dog a bath today. He don't even notice. I'm not getting words of affirmation. So he does give me words of affirmation about other things, but not about mental load types of things,
Mm-hmm.
which,
Mm-hmm.
I think is more of like needing to be acknowledged for all of the work that we do that no one sees,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it can be exhausting sometimes. But I've let a lot of stuff go. I have to say, I think sometimes we can put a lot of load on ourselves, and I'm starting to realize that like part of that is just letting some stuff go. Things aren't
Mm-hmm.
always going to look right. Things aren't always going to be right. You got to embrace the messy and do the best you can without stressing yourself out. Like, don't add to your mental load.
No.
There's enough out there. Like, let's not be adding to it,
Right. Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. We're looking to be subtractive in this thing, not additive, or at least
Yeah.
maintain a manageable balance, you know? And
Yeah.
balance, remember, we talked about this on the podcast before. Balance is not maintaining a level, balance is a teeter totter.
Mm-hmm.
And so, some days it may be, and this again, I guess this all comes back to communication. My mental load may not be as heavy as what his is or what my kids are,
Right.
and we all need to acknowledge that we're on our own teeter totters here.
Everybody's,
Yeah.
yeah, everybody's bringing their own mental load because you don't know what they're thinking about.
Mm-mm.
That's a communication piece. So I think we had some good takeaways today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hopefully so. Again, it's been a topic that has come up as a request from our listeners on here, and hopefully this has been pretty validating with the message just kind of coming back to being. I think it comes to like self-recognition of where we're at. So we need to do those like self-assessments. Is my load reaching its max? Think of it as like a gas meter. Like, when are you getting gas? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or when's the pressure cooker about ready to kind of go off?
Yeah,
eh,
or just write it all down. Like, let it be known what all's
mhm.
in the load, you know?
Yeah. And then I think we talked about this, it's having those kind of check-ins with your spouse,
Hmm.
because that's a piece of communication with it, whether it's about like your upcoming schedule for the week. That's a pretty good indicator for me as to how
Hmm.
our week's going to go. Like, before he left just a little bit ago, we reviewed our week. Like, what do we have kind of coming up?
Yeah.
What big things do we have within the next month or so? Just so that way there's somewhere there with on the radar that
Yeah.
again can be touched on as the day kind of happens or progresses. I love your suggestion about using a notes app. Recently, actually about a few months ago, one of our friends suggested that we use a shared calendar.
Hmm.
And so we do use a shared calendar so that way we can kind of see like what's going on. Um,
Yeah.
and that's helpful. And then, our self check-ins, our relationship check-ins, check-ins with our family, kind of what's going on here or there. And for us, it's also about celebrating successes.
Yeah.
And this probably goes back again to maybe that kind of need for positive reinforcement, the
Yeah.
behaviorist over here,
For
right?
sure.
But if our kids bring home a good report card, or if they get good news about something, we're celebrating. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We're having some kind of special dinner, or we're having some kind of party because we want to acknowledge the achievement of goals, or the refocus on having like a better mindset about
Hmm.
things. or changes that we've asked to see be made from a behavioral, emotional, whatever kind of standpoint, we want to acknowledge those successes if we want them to kind of continue. And so we make a heavy effort to kind of do that within our home too. Even if the expectation isn't ours, if our kid is proud of something that they've done, then we're going to celebrate that as a success. And that can be sometimes a hard reframe for parents. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
if our kid is proud of something that they've done and we know they've put effort and worked hard on it, then we always celebrate those successes as a part of it too. So maybe things to consider.
Yep. All right. That's all we got for this week. Hopefully that helps. Some of those tips help you with your mental load. Check us out on our Facebook, our Instagram, our website, thelylaspodcast.com. We love all of the topics. This again was listener provided topic. And so we are going to be working through those for season 3 because there's some really, really, really good ones in there. So keep them coming. We love the suggestions so far. And yeah, let us know how it's going. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, LYLAS.
We're out.